Tropical storm and hurricane alerts are out as Tropical Storm Lee gets ready to make landfall on Saturday night. I'm meteorologist Joe Martucci with this edition of Hurricane Hunt. Good to be with you here, and thanks for clicking on this video. Let's take a look at what we have going on. A Saturday night landfall in either eastern Maine or Atlantic Canada. The winds, though, are going to extend far outside of eastern Maine or Atlantic Canada. We'll show you that in just a minute. And heavy rain and storm surge will be likely here as we go forward over the next couple of days. Here's a look at all the watches and warnings. There's a lot of different colors here, but where you see the yellows, that's a tropical storm watch. Most of Nova Scotia, inland Maine in that first county or so, then getting down to Boston, Massachusetts, Block Island, Rhode Island. We have a warning in effect for Nantucket up to Yarmouth and Cape Cod, and then a hurricane watch from Bath, Maine, all the way up the immediate coast and in the southern portion of Nova Scotia here. And this is in effect until further notice. We take a look at our satellite right now. There's two storms actually spinning. We have Margot, which is over on the eastern side of the Atlantic, but we will focus on Lee here. You will see that this right now is a Category 1 hurricane, maximum sustained winds at 85 miles an hour. Remember, at one point in time, this storm was a Category 5 hurricane. It is now a Category 1, but it is a larger hurricane here, and it is moving to the north at 15 miles an hour. A lot of the activity here in terms of the rain is to the north of the system here, so it's not really looking very healthy in terms of storms. It was looking healthier earlier this week, but it's still a Category 1 hurricane, and the wind field is just massive with this. 39 mile an hour winds, which is tropical storm force, extending 500 miles from west to east. And Bermuda right now is in tropical storm force winds. Hurricane force winds 184 miles long here. That's roughly the length of New Jersey. So we are talking about a large swath of area that's in these hurricane force winds. Now, as we take a look at what we can expect in terms of the forecast track here, we'll zoom in and show you. And just remember, this is a very, very long track storm. It was rolling off the coast of Africa about a week and a half ago, and now it is here. We take you into our Friday. Here is a Cat 1 storm, 85 mile an hour maximum sustained winds at that time. We then get you into Saturday here, 2 a.m. This is 80 mile an hour winds. So this is still a Category 1 hurricane. The question is going to be, does it maintain hurricane strength when it makes landfall somewhere here as we go into Saturday night? If it's not, it's going to be called a post-tropical cyclone. The impacts are still the same, but it's not technically a hurricane at landfall here. Hurricane Sandy, known as Superstorm Sandy, did the same in 2012 when it made landfall on the Jersey Shore. We'll then take you to Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m., still just south of land, and then this is going to be sometime during the evening on Saturday. You see just the far eastern tip of Maine in the cone here for where there could be a direct landfall, but more than likely it's going to be New Brunswick, Canada, or Nova Scotia, Canada, remembering that the impacts will be outside of this cone. Then as we go forward in time, this is Sunday at 3 a.m., it's making its way through land, then it goes out into the bay here, and then it goes over maybe Newfoundland or Labrador, Canada, and then eventually we're talking about this at Monday being a remnant storm with 40 mile an hour maximum sustained winds, and here is that whole path over the next couple of days. Now, it's not often that Maine gets a landfalling hurricane if it was to make landfall in Maine. The last time we saw a landfalling hurricane was 1969 with Gerda. On average, one returns to eastern Maine, far eastern Maine, one every 29 years. But this is just an average. And like we said just before, Gerda was over 55 years ago. So we are talking about, or about 55 years, I should say. So again, this is just an average. But in short, Maine does not get a lot of direct landfalling hurricanes. We'll take a look at our winds here. We're going to show you 4 locations: Cape Cod, Boston, Massachusetts, Bar Harbor, Maine, and Shelburne, Nova Scotia. You're going to see Cape Cod really getting into stronger winds with this, more so than anywhere because of just how it juts out from the bay here. So as we go forward in time, this is Friday evening now. This is 11 p.m. You see Cape Cod 35-mile-an-hour maximum sustained winds, getting into tropical storm force winds as we go into Friday night and early Saturday. This is why Cape Cod's in that tropical storm warning, because they are going to see that force of winds. We go into Saturday here, Shelburne getting up into the 30s with the sustained winds. Then you see it starts to go into the Bay of Fundy. That's right here, and it weakens as it does so. Still going to be gusty as you go into Saturday night, but really the worst of the winds for Maine and Cape Cod and even Nova Scotia are going to be Friday night into early Saturday. There will be a lot of rainfall with this as well. We're looking for some places to see up to 6 inches of rain in eastern Maine or New Brunswick, Canada. Here's a look at our wave heights. See Bermuda, that's this little island right here. Very high waves there. Just offshore, it's 30 feet. But we go into our Friday here. You see this wave field expand. Very high waves. You know, there's cruise lines that go from New York area into Nova Scotia and into Newfoundland here. That's not going to be happening this weekend. Very high waves. Likely the highest are going to be in Nova Scotia here. 1 to 3 feet of storm surge from Long Island to Maine. There's going to be one exception to that, and that's going to be right here on the shores of eastern Massachusetts into Cape Cod. 3 to 5 feet expected there, as well as Nova Scotia. Storm surge is water above normally dry ground here. So we're talking about places that don't usually see any kind of salt water on it there. By Sunday, a lot of this storm surge is going away and the wave heights are decreasing as well. Now, this is not all for the tropics. Again, like we said, we have Margot, but we also have this area that we're watching out for in the eastern Atlantic. This is a 90% chance of this becoming Nigel within the next 48 hours. In other words, by Saturday evening, when Lee is going to be making landfall somewhere in either far eastern Maine as well as Nova Scotia. So that's our first note here as we wrap this up for you. Again, that Saturday night landfall. We are expecting tropical storm force winds well outside of the center. You saw that graphic before, about 500 miles wide in terms of those tropical storm force winds right now. That's going to stay about that as we go forward in time. And then heavy rain and storm surge going to be likely with this storm as well. We'll have another update for you in our latest edition of Hurricane Hunt on Friday. You can catch that right around midday. Of course, for more from our weather team, you can check out your favorite news website.